flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody to tonight's meeting, March 15th. We are going to begin tonight with a public hearing on the Cold War exemption. And I'm assuming some of you guys have gotten copies of things and maybe you've gotten emails. This is on the website. We've sent it out the previous 2 months. This is a local law that we introduced to eliminate our Cold War veterans, to reinstate it, the exemption that the state told us was expired. So what we're going to do, the process that we're going to follow is we're going to read the resolution. We're going to ask if anybody has any comments about it. If nobody has any comments, we're going to close. We're going to vote on the resolution and then close and move on to the regular meeting. Okay? So I'm going to ask Andrea, do you mind reading the resolution?
Whereas a local law was introduced entitled A Local Law of the Town of Unionville, Dutchess County, New York, to amend Code Chapter 196, Article V, Control War Veterans, Cold War Veterans Exemption with respect to duration of benefits. Whereas a public hearing in relation to said local law was held on March 15, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. prevailing time, and whereas notice of said public hearing was given pursuant to the terms and provisions of the Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York, and whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the Town Board of the Town of Unionville for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, now therefore be it resolved that the following local law is hereby enacted. Town of Unionville, Local Law Number 1 of the year 2018. Section 1, Chapter 196, Article 5 of the Town Code of the Town of Unionville is hereby amended to add Section 196-8.1, reading as follows. Duration of exemption. The 10-year limitation imposed within real property tax law, Section 458-B, 2C, 3, which local governments have the option to remove, shall not apply to qualifying owners of qualifying real property for as long as they remain qualified owners. Section 2. This law shall take effect immediately upon filing with this state's Secretary of State. Resolved that the town clerk shall file a certified original of this local law in the office of the town clerk, and one certified copy in the office of the Secretary of State, State of New York. Such certified copy to have attached thereto certificate executed by the attorney for the Town of Unionville that it contains the correct text and that all proper proceedings have been had or taken for the enactment of this local law.
Thank you, Andrea. So the procedures that we follow are we keep a separate record of all these resolutions and all these public hearings, and we've posted everything properly. And now we'd like to know if anybody has any questions or any comments or anything that you'd like to say about this local law and the Cold War exemption. No comments? It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. So can I have a motion?
Make the motion, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Does that have to be a roll call vote?
We're gonna
That was
ask
just to
for-
close. That was to close the hearing.
That was just to close the hearing. So Andrea, now can you take the roll call vote for the resolution?
Supervisor Moss?
Aye.
Councilman Frazier?
Aye.
Councilman Kelly?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Welch?
Aye.
I didn't catch who moved and seconded.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
I'll make the motion that we
Yeah,
pass
I was
it.
going to say Steve and Dave, but that was to close the hearing.
Okay, so there was a motion.
Dave.
Dave.
McMorris.
Dave McMorris.
Okay.
And did Karina, did you second?
I'll second it, that's fine.
And we're all voting.
Great.
Thanks, Dave. You're always good with veterans.
Huh?
You're always good to veterans.
I'm the only veteran up here.
I know.
Okay, so thank you very much. The hearing is now closed, and now we're going to call the regular meeting to order. Andrea, we have distributed the minutes from February 15th?
I sent you to the board, yes.
Great. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for February 15th?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, unanimous. All right, awesome. All right, now we'll move into the reports. I'm going to begin the supervisor's report tonight with a comment about town board meeting procedures. Just because the issues come up and there seems to be a little uncertainty, so we thought it would be helpful to prepare. I've prepared something that I want to make sure is clear to everybody, and then of course after the meeting we can talk about it if anybody has any questions. The local, your local government, I mean the town of Unionville and your board, conducts work in meetings and hearings that are always open to the public. Under the open meetings law in the state of New York, the town board is required to hold all meetings in public whenever there is a quorum present, which is more than 2 members. But in addition, we feel it is extremely important that the residents are informed and understand what is going on and what goes into making public policy in the town of Unionville. Whenever we meet to conduct public business, our proceedings, quote, must be convened open to the public, unquote, and we must give proper notice of our meetings, and the easiest place for you to check for this proper notice is on our town website. We send notices to the media and every other place that we're required to, but the website would be the most convenient place for you. While any member of the public is welcome to attend, and we encourage you to do so, the law does not require the public body to offer the public an opportunity to be heard. The right to participate or to speak at a meeting may be limited to the members of the public body itself. A public body may, however, permit your public participation and may provide rules for speakers to follow at meetings. To that end, and in an effort to keep the lines of communication flowing in both directions, we're establishing the following meeting rules for us to try. If they are successful and enhance our communication positively, we will keep them, and if not, we'll adapt them as we go along. But from now going forward until we change, I'm going to read these rules out to you. Number 1, we are going to permit comments on agenda items, and this was going to take place on the agenda after the supervisor and the board members have made their remarks or their reports. We will also permit comments on town issues. That will take place at the end of the meeting. This is intended as a time to focus on important issues. Trivial issues are not going to be shouldn't be entertained at a board meeting, so as not to waste anyone's time. For non-important or subjective issues, I think I would ask that you call the town supervisor or any of the town board members for assistance or to share your opinion. We'd love to talk to you at any time. Speakers may comment for no more than 3 minutes so as not to postpone the rest of the meeting. Speakers will be given a 20-second warning so they do not run out of time before they've been able to conclude and make an important point. So everybody will hear a gentle 20 seconds as you're going through, if you're getting close to the 3-minute time frame. Speakers cannot cede their time to another speaker. Comments are supposed to be directed to the supervisor, who will ask someone on the board to answer during the meeting, or I'll just take notes and we'll respond at a later time, depending on the question and depending on the agenda and how busy we are and all of that, okay? Finally, presenters to the town board need to direct their comments to the town board so we don't have a lot of give and take and distractions if we're trying to get through a very heavy agenda and have a lot to get to. So we think that will help give us some order, and we think that that will help us be efficient and certainly give everybody a chance to say something if they have something important on their minds. And with that, I'm going to go on to the supervisor's financial report. Everybody should have gotten, I think, I know you're dying to see this. Everybody has the February report in front of them, and you can certainly read this for yourselves. If you got the agendas at the door, there's one attached to this, so you feel free, and it'll be on the website as well. Property tax-wise, we collected a lot of money in the month of February. We got a sales tax check from the county, which is always great. We had a big month in recreation, and which we will hear about in a few minutes. We also, which is terrific, we also had spent some money on snow and repairs and things like that, which is pretty normal. But we had a big between the snow and between the big, I think that the payroll was really large this month with overtime from snow. I went back and looked at previous years, and it was in line with the previous years. But you're not used to seeing the big jump from January to February because of all the snow we've had. But all in all, we're pretty much in line. We're a little bit ahead of budget from where we were last year. And at the end of March, I think what we'll do at the end of the first quarter, we'll give you a budget update. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about that or anything that you need follow-up on later? I know the financials are something we've been interested in. No? Okay, feel free to call me if you do have any questions about this, okay? We are still in the middle of the 2015 to 2017 audits. Our accountant is working his way through all of them. We have gotten the extension on the AUD, which we do every year, frankly, because they want it so quickly, at the start of a new year. So we had that extension filed. I'm expecting all of these audits, to the cash audits and the supervisor's books, to be finished, I'm hoping, in April. So we'll keep you posted on that. All right. Progress on our policy manuals. Tonight we have 2 policy manuals. You all know, if you've been paying attention to our discussions at all, and that we have now up to 9 policy manuals that we have to create or adapt a little bit this year. Some of them have already been existing. We're just taking some good comments from the State Comptroller's Office and other people and adding them to our manuals. We've got 2 done. We're going to vote on them later tonight. And in the month of April, we are going to be working on the next 2 that are coming up, which is updating our procurement policy and creating something we haven't had before, which is an internet policy. So those will be up in April. The next item, I'm rushing through mine because we have some very interesting discussions to get through tonight. We had an audit, as all of you know, that was posted on December 1st at the State Comptroller's Office, and I had to respond. It was the supervisor's job to respond to the audit, and I did respond to the audit and submitted it to the State Comptroller's Office, and they have sent back a recognition of the receipt of that. So till we hear otherwise, we're in complete compliance and in good shape with them. I spent many hours, many more than I would have wished, to be honest with you, at the Dutchess County HR department. And what we found there is something that you guys have been hinting about in the past, that some of our job titles aren't matching what some people are doing. And it's really interesting. I know that Fran Wallen is our town historian, and it's really a volunteer position, but we have no town historian at all on the Unionville listing. And I mean, I know that it's not a job, but it's a volunteer spot, but you would have thought over the years, I thought that was interesting. So we are going to make sure we create that, even if the salary for it is whatever that small stipend is that she gets, just to make sure we have it on the books. Anyway, we're going to make all the HR titles match. We're going to be doing that over the next month or so, and then I think we'll be in good shape when we have to verify salaries annually, which is coming up this spring. So there's another, we're doing a lot of bookkeeping and paperwork, but we're getting it done. The last thing I'd like to say is remind everybody that we are open on Saturday mornings. And we've had a lot of people come in, and I think the people that commute and that work pretty far away, it's important, it was helpful for them to pay their taxes. But we are still going to be open through June, unless nobody comes in ever again, then we might think about it might not be worth it. But if you have any town business to do and you need to come in, we'd love to have you Saturdays from 9 till 12. And the last thing I'm going to say in my report, I'm going to mention Unionville Mail again. If you go to the front page of our website, there's a little box on the right side where you can sign up for Unionville Mail. And I think it's really important if you could encourage people. We have no broad-based way to communicate with everybody. And, we have snippets of this, and we're a little, as most towns are, but we would like to collect as many email addresses on Unionville Mail as we can, because I think it was very helpful for us during the storm. We could send out updates during the snowstorm. People didn't have to read them, but if they were interested, or if they were out of power and they were looking at their cell phone and getting information that way, it was actually, there was some interest. There was very good information there from Central Hudson and some of the Mark Molinaro daily calls. We had a lot of conference calls getting a feel for what was going on. So please encourage anybody you know to sign up for Unionville Mail so we can get broader base in our communication. Okay? And that's it for me. If anybody has any questions, feel free again. Please call me in the office anytime. I'd love to hear from you. Now we'll move to board member comments. So I think you want me to, I'll start with Karina.
So I do apologize that I was not here at the last meeting. I had a family emergency that I had to attend to. So, but I did catch up on the last meeting, and now I've learned I'll just Skype in if I have to miss, because it took me like all 2 weeks to catch up. But this past month has been just a whirlwind. There's been so much going on. I was able to attend the Beekman Library annual meeting. It was It was fascinating. We have been having discussions with Recreation about trying to bring some community members in on a volunteer basis and what that would look like and how we could build on that. And really, while there are a few people in a library that gets paid, they actually have a regular 72 or so at the library that are regular volunteers that come in faithfully. And then when you add in the people that need usually students, that need National Honor Society credit or Eagle Scout projects and things, they come up to about 100 in a year, which was fascinating because it is not an enormous library. It is not, it's Beekman, it is bigger than us, but it was sort of fascinating to see and the recognition of these volunteers. So that was really eye-opening to see it in a different way after having the discussions that we've been having here. Betsy and I were able to go to Unionvale Middle School along with George Treadwell and sit with Scott Wood, who was the principal, and the two vice principals there. I really felt like it was very, my son does attend there, but I went under a different capacity. I felt like it was a very productive meeting. Yeah. We were just able to have some brainstorming sessions on how we can build with the school and more of a community. Betsy and I personally have been having lots of discussions about our seniors, especially in light of the storms, and they may be at risk, and trying to figure out who those vulnerable seniors are, so how we can do that, and possibly engaging our middle schoolers. Maybe there's 3 in the neighborhood of that senior who can check on that senior. And maybe it's just a phone call to say, are you okay? Do you have power? Whatever. And their parents, of course, because we wouldn't want students doing that alone. So we're having lots of discussions on that and maybe how we can do that as a town and build on that. We had discussions about how we can bring our kids into our recycling center because they have something going on with Hyde Park. So we're going to be able to, especially those in middle school, it's not called National Honor Society, it's called Junior, and they get an honor key. So we're going to bring them in to the recycling center prior to Earth Day. I believe the date we picked was April 14th. Mm-hmm. And they're going to take like little 1 hour, 2 hour chunks of time between their soccer games and all the other stuff. The kids that tend to get in the honor societies are very active children and they do a lot, but we're going to bring them in and they're going to work with Tom St. Ange giving out all the orange bags so we can clean up our town and make that be a big project, and that would be the following weekend that they could spend Saturday or Sunday or whatever and just write on a little card for our highway people where to pick up the bags, and then we could people have been commenting, as the snow melts, just stuff is sitting there, so we can kind of have that nice spring cleanup in our town. And also just working especially with George Treadwell coming with us, having a discussion specifically with Paul Hackett, who is one of their vice principals who works on security. We all know, we all watch the news, we all see the things that happen. So having those discussions, Vale Farm and Unionvale Middle are great in that they have each other as a resource, but if something happened on the entire campus, we would want to work that out. So they're going to be coming, or maybe they have, to meet with Jake and see the spaces that we have, and see if that can be a part of at least this small area of the Arlington School District's backup plan. So that was really a very productive meeting. I thought it went really well. Also, I did reach out to Arlington High School, I reached out to Marist, and I reached out to Dutchess Community College. And the only person that seemed to even pursue my idea of our television broadcast idea was the coordinator who does the program and runs the interns at Dutchess Community College. So I'm like, great, I have some interest. And the more we pursued it, she had 2 interns that needed an internship, and then I'm like, okay, and then she's like, well, they don't have a car. So I looked at the Loop Bus system, which of course in Unionvale ends at like 9 something, and I'm like, ooh, should I commit to driving these kids? I don't know, I have enough kids of my own to take care of. I'm like, I'll adopt them. But, and then as we pursued it, she actually does has in the past done the broadcasting in the northern part of the country, county, and she's like, it's really actually too cumbersome for an internship. It really is a paid position. So then I said, okay, great. Do you have any contacts? Like, you did this, do you have contacts? So she said she would get back to me if she did. She didn't lead me on to anyone. So I'm thinking, as a whole, if Ellen is looking for a sidekick, I know Ellen is actually looking to possibly step aside because this is such a far drive for her. Maybe we should reach out to other towns if they have a board meeting on a Tuesday, maybe their person is interested in coming here on a Thursday, maybe we could work something out. I think it's still something worth pursuing. I'm just not, that was sort of my brainstorm, that we could get some kind of student in the area, and it just didn't seem to really pan out. And the other, I guess we can have this discussion now, was just in discussing open meeting, I guess I just had a few questions that I wanted to clarify. So like at the end of this agenda, it says our next board meeting is April 19th. But that indeed is not correct, because our next board meeting is April 5th. I understand that we call it our work meeting, but no matter what we call it, it is a meeting of the board.
Right.
And so our dates to the town, if,
Well, I think that as long, I mean, I think that is when we're going to be voting, you know, that we post them and we send them to the media, everything, and the website. So every time we meet, even for the financial reviews, we did that.
right, but this really should say April 5th. Even though we're not going to necessarily take a vote, that's the next meeting we know of the town board. But then we were having Wednesday meetings that we weren't necessarily announcing that we were meeting the following Wednesday. We were putting it on the website, I do agree with you. But I think some people are just watching Channel 22. And then I guess my concern was,
I don't think we're required to put it on Channel 22, though. I think, where do we put it? We put it in the Poughkeepsie Journal?
Poughkeepsie Journal, we alert them, their news outlet, and then we put it on the website and the town channel.
We do put it on the channel. Okay.
okay.
We do list it, okay.
And then I guess just my concern is, I know that no minutes were taken at any meeting. And of the vast majority of meetings, no decisions were made. But on one Wednesday meeting I was at, a decision for staffing was made. And that is not in any minutes anywhere. And that concerns me, because that is a violation of open meeting.
Okay.
So, so going forward.
I wouldn't say that I agree with that, but I hear what you're saying.
Okay, so going forward, that is what we are, you know, we didn't have Andrea there, that's fine, but if any decisions are made, that needs to be recorded in a meeting process so that those meetings are available to the public. Because anything that is done out of public purview, any decisions, can actually be overturned, according to open meeting law. That would be the consequence of making a decision
Right,
out of
I
public
have read
purview.
that too, yeah.
So those were just my concerns going forward on, you know, open meeting, and just to be, I want everything really on TV. I want to be as transparent as possible. I've tried that since the day I've been elected. I myself tell people to call me. They call me at home all the time. Sometimes they call me at home for rec, and I'm like, have you spoken to Jessica? Because like I don't run rec.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you very
So I
much.
think that would just be something to look at.
Yeah, I think we're all on that same page with you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Karina. Dave?
Okay, there are two things that I did this last couple of weeks. One, this was something that we started, I forget when, back in September of 18, and I got an answer from,
Thank you.
you tell?
Must be on the date.
Yeah, he probably want one of these.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things in his report that I'll highlight quickly. One was that there were restrictions in our last agreement that prevented us from getting data for more than 1 year. It is normal that the,
Oh, the contract.
in the contract, that the state usually gives us a 6-year benefit for statute of limitations for challenging the franchise fee. Our contract only gave us 365 days. He did give us an estimate of what we would be getting back. He said this will probably be challenged, but I spoke with him this week. He is filing an appeal to get the money back to us. I should hear more next month. But if you take a look, and I'm not saying we could have done this any better. I know the lawyer did approve the contract when it was signed. But if we had that 5 years, that additional 5 years, it would have been a considerable amount of money. One of the things he states in his letter is that we should get this rectified as quickly as possible,
Right.
because we still have 3 years left in this contract. And apparently, we're losing a lot of money that we should be getting in the franchise fees. So, he doesn't get paid other than what he collects from us.
He gets a
So
percentage of what we
he
get.
gets a percentage. So all in all, I think it was a good adventure. And hopefully, we'll be able to rectify all this quickly.
This is really good work, Dave, because, I mean, I don't know when the contract was entered into. It looks like it was
2011.
2011.
But, I mean, it's like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that most people have a contract that they can look back 6 years, and we have a contract where you can look back 1 year. You know, and it's, anyway, but if we could collect some of this, 30,000, and do that for the next 3 years and add it to what we're already getting, that would be terrific for the town.
Dave, did he say why we weren't getting all we should be getting?
Weird, he wasn't including it.
Well, yeah, he does state in here, on the second page, I believe he explains what we should have been collecting money for and what we weren't collecting money for. One of the things is equipment fees. He says that might be a difficult one, but he explained in his thing, we should have been collecting on 5% on gross receipts, and their gross receipts were basically paying for basic cable. Didn't include any equipment fees.
So it almost sounds like they were in violation of the contract themselves by not paying us the full total.
Right, and...
So regardless of if it's a
as he-
one-year contract, if they were, since of 2011, not paying what we should be paying, I
Well,
would think,
that might be something that we have to talk to our attorney about
yeah,
afterwards.
that's what I'm wondering.
But that would be, but at least we know now, and
Yeah.
the next contract, we should actually start working on the next contract soon. Then the other thing that we worked on this week, I worked with Steve and Andrea and Jake on the security cameras for the court and the town hall, and we were able to get and stay within the budget because of the grant that we got from the state, a better camera, giving us a little bit more of a level of security here in the town hall, especially for the people that work late at night. That's all I've got.
Good. Thank you, Dave. Steve?
You know, like Dave mentioned, I worked with him and Andrea on the security cameras. Since our last meeting, we've had 2 major snowstorms. Just wanted to give a shout out to the highway department again for taking care of our roads and keeping them clear as best they could. The first one was much worse than the second.
Yeah.
Not only were they clearing snow, they were clearing trees from the road where they weren't tangled in the power lines. And it is a safety concern, the reason that they were not able to remove some trees, you know, from the roadway that were entangled with power lines. That can't be done until Central Hudson confirms that those lines are dead. It's a big safety concern.
Yeah.
But I'm always out in the snow because my job keeps me out in it, and our roads are always among the best that I come in contact with, and that's in 3 or 4 different towns and state and county roads. So
We got a lot of compliments on our highway department, on email and phone calls. So especially after the storm subsided, people were
Yeah.
very complimentary, which was nice. Thanks for mentioning that, Steve.
And I'd like to thank our supervisor for staying on top of things with Central Hudson and the power outages. I know they weren't very much fun for most people, but I'll give her credit. She stayed on the phone with the county executive and officials from Central Hudson to make sure we got our fair share of service as far as crews coming out here. We had 3 crews from Vermont as well as Central Hudson crews doing what they can do to get power back. It took quite a while for some people, but it was a strong effort, and thanks to the supervisor, these guys stayed with it. And she
Yeah,
also
they
got
came
them
a
to give
day
us
late.
dry ice and water
Oh,
to,
yeah. They came a day
distribute.
late and they felt guilty about it, so then they drove all the way out here
yeah. So,
with the dry ice and the bottles of water, some of which are still out front. Would you please grab some as you leave tonight? Because they sent us a big batch, and it was nice. They didn't make us come get it. They drove it out here because they were a little off on their timing. And
yeah, and residents that needed the dry ice were very appreciative to get that, because we got it Sunday. By that time, it had been 2 full days of no power, so they really needed to protect their food supplies.
which kind of gets back to what Karina was talking about earlier. It would be really terrific if not only if we could reach more people, because there were people that came by here to plug in their cell phones.
Yeah.
And they said, my neighbor told me about, like Unionville Mail, they said, my neighbor told me that to come to town hall, but, you know, if we could get in touch with more people, and if they would call even on their cell phone, we could have taken some of that stuff to them.
Sure,
You know, we
yeah,
did try it on Highview Road, they were absolutely the last road.
to get power,
We
yeah.
had 44 people without power on Highview, and it must have been a week. So we took dry ice and water up there, and
Well, they got it, I think Tuesday night, was it Tuesday night they got
I
it?
don't remember what night, no, there were some of them who got it later, they had
Later
She
than
went
that?
Wednesday.
Really?
Yeah.
We were
it was
talking on the
Wednesday.
phone. You ran over there
Okay.
on Wednesday.
with Jake and
so
the
that
guys,
was
they
still
put
out.
water in the back of the truck and they were driving it to people's homes, and there were a lot of generators up there, so they weren't upset, but that whole street was out really, it was tough for these people, so
Yeah,
we're lucky, we got it back on.
yeah. I just also want to mention that I've been working on the internet policy, which is part of our requirement for the audit, and that will be talked about on the April 5th meeting.
Great, that's terrific, thank you, John. Okay, we have public comments on agenda items. Does anybody have a comment? There's a microphone right there, it should be working.
A question first, if I speak now, am I also allowed to speak later?
Yeah, this is.
Okay, that wasn't covered in your, that's why I'm asking.
That's a good point, I'll add
Yes,
that.
okay.
You can speak twice and you get 3 minutes each time.
Okay, all right. First, I want to thank Andrea, because when I turned on Channel 22 to watch the meeting of the last official town hall, there was no sound. And I called her, and this is the second time I've annoyed her about being able to see things or not see things. And I have to compliment her because she called me back within 6 hours, and that was great. And I want to compliment the supervisor for helping the town to get through that terrible snowstorm. I do have a suggestion, which just came up in your conversation, John, when you talked about the fact that there were people with generators and without. It might be helpful for those of us who do have generators, who would be willing to offer our homes for cell charging or for taking a shower, just to have a way of contacting our neighbors. I mean, I did it on a personal level, but I don't know every single neighbor, and some of them are new. And we were without a generator a long time, and I think it's a great thing, and it builds community. So it's just a
Good idea,
suggestion.
Good idea.
Excuse me. Taking my time. Okay. In terms of deciding what's trivial and not trivial, that was the only thing that you said, or two things about your policy. That becomes a very kind of sticky wicket situation, and I think maybe amongst yourselves you might get a definition of that in terms of what comments are trivial and not trivial. And I do think that it's a great idea that you are sharing this with us now. My own point of view is, for civility, 4 minutes would be better than 3. Last week I was cut off in the middle, and I said to myself, dag nabbit, although I may not have said that, dag nabbit, I spent the first minute and a half thanking people for what they had done well. So if you want to increase civility, I suggest 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Wait, I think
Tillman Shaughnessy Road, Tillman Shaughnessy Road. This may not be the time, but we have, I'm an elderly, Lizette's an elderly. Lizette's not an elderly.
Not as old as you, anyway.
We old-timers have talked about being elderly and alone, and maybe having a young kid, a middle school kid, just check in. And then Ken Andrews, who's heavily involved with insurance and that whole area of our society, said if this were organized under the umbrella of the town, that could really be a big insurance problem, a big responsibility problem. So I don't know how this would work out, but it would be nice. You lived by your dad. He was really, really lucky, John.
Yeah,
I'm lucky to have my kid living with me, but we have elderlies in this town who don't have anybody.
that's true, yeah.
And again, we've talked about it, and then I go talk to them in the cemetery when they're dead. That's my job. Sir, who are you? I'm Tillman, I already said who I am.
I'm Jim Nelson. I'm an attorney of
Okay.
Vanderwater and Vanderwater.
Okay, and you're not, that's why Jeff's not here.
Jeff
You're the
wasn't
person.
available tonight.
Okay, I just wondered who the heck you were.
Okay,
So
thank
maybe
you.
owned it.
If
All
that's-
right, now, I want to say something about the 3 minutes.
How much time
At
does
the
she have?
last meeting,
Okay, you got a minute and a half.
now, because you announced it, but prior to that, the 3 minutes was not announced. Lizette's last meeting still had a 3-minute rule. When Patty came in, she said anybody can talk about just about anything, however long they want. And pretty quickly, fewer and fewer people came to meetings, and fewer people blew hot air or said important stuff. I always say important things. So we had 2 years of unlimited time. So you're jumping on Ann because she was with the 3-minute business.
She was almost at 6 minutes, and yeah, it was...
But you understand, we were expecting a continuation of that which we had. And now you've clarified, but...
Thank you.
But that was a little bit not nice.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we're talking about the storm, right?
We're actually talking, these are
Agenda.
public comments on agenda items.
Agenda items.
Is there something on the agenda that you'd like to talk about?
No.
You sure? Okay, now at the end, we have public comment, town issue comments about town issues, which I think that one probably should have gone at the end, so, but we'll get the hang of it. Thank you. Okay, our highway super, Richie, was at a meeting with us this afternoon and wasn't planning on coming this evening because some other things. So, I mean, there wasn't, other than the storm and the fact that they've been working extremely hard on the storm, I think the one thing that he asked me to tell you about was that we had his plow that broke and he had to buy a new plow for that big truck.
Right, last
Which was
Friday.
taken care of. He went and got it. He got it installed. He got it taken care of right when the storm was starting. So the timing couldn't have been better. So that was a big event last week, I guess it was last week.
Last Friday.
Last Friday. And, but he got it done in time, and they were, on their game through the whole storm. So that was about all I asked him to talk about. Town clerk?
Okay, so for town clerk, we're still using the town calendar on the website, the town calendar tab for keeping everyone up to date on events, reminders from Parks and Rec to tax collection to Burning Man, which is now in effect. So stay tuned there for all of your town updates. For the tax collector, Joan Miller has asked me to pass along that we are at 85% collected at this moment, and the remainder of the 15% have until May 31st to pay to the town.
Thank you, Andrea. I think at this point, we're going to go to committee reports, board reports, and the first one up is the planning board. Kevin Durley, you want to come up and... You're right here, Kevin. You're going to sit next to Steve.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Do I get a microphone?
Because we have some, we have
You
some
can bring that over if
materials.
you like, or
No, you use that
Sure, I
one.
can talk loud enough.
We have
Yeah.
in our packets.
Okay. I'm Kevin Durham, the chairman of the planning board. So I figured we'd give a brief update of what's happened at the planning board in this few months since the new year started. Obviously, you guys know last year we had all kinds of problems with the reduction in hours for Joan, caused some problems at the front of the house, and then we were having some communication issues with the escrows, how much they should cost, the procedure on how to collect them, and all that. So I got to thank Betsy for working really hard since she took office in January in getting us, or working really hard to get us up to speed here. So since that happened, we've been working really hard on streamlining these procedures. But the escrow, we've changed or more defined how we are collecting it now, who's going to collect it, and then also, more importantly, how we're going to communicate where everybody stands with their escrows. We were having a lot of problems last year with too much lag time
And people wouldn't know where they stood for weeks, and the consultants didn't know where they stood, and there was too much overlap, and we had a lot of problems last year. We've updated the fee schedules, or we're in the midst of updating the fee schedules, I should say. And we
Those are in here tonight, we're going to vote on those tonight.
And so we worked with the consultants on that.
Jim Nelson is our land use attorney.
Yes. Jim Nelson is now our land use attorney, which I guess I'll go over that in a second. But so we're working on getting those fee schedules dialed in so that they're more close to, I guess, what we would feel that the applicants couldn't expect to spend to get an application, more or less from start to finish, barring any unforeseen circumstances. We've also been working on the planning board member job descriptions and duties, which I believe is in your packets. And that's designed basically to kind of hold everybody to a certain standard. You know, we felt like some people maybe were falling off a little bit. And with our new consultants, one of the things that we've done is we've basically cleaned house, our lawyer, our engineer, and our planner, and we've started fresh. So Jim Nelson now from Van Water. Van Water is our counsel. And then we've combined the position of the engineer and the planner. And that is now Tom Harvey, and he's from Associates. We feel like they have a better perspective on what our town needs are, what our applicants' needs are. They don't have that big town mind. And so they've been really helpful so far in the few months that we've been working together, and I think we have good things ahead. So with that, back to our duties thing. With the combination of the engineer and planner, we felt that it was important to put a little bit more responsibility on put a little more responsibility on the planning board members themselves, making sure that everybody comes to the meetings prepared with a knowledge of what each application requires within the code. So that we feel will help keep some of the costs down for the applicants. We felt like some of the applications, the costs, their escrow fees were getting a little bit out of hand. So hopefully with that we can streamline for everybody, streamline for the town with all these processes, streamline everything for the town, better communication, I think a better experience for the applications, and maybe streamline them as well and get them through a little bit faster than maybe they had in the past. So I'm optimistic, and once again I thank Betsy and I thank everybody else for their support.
We thank Kevin and Joan for all your hard work and all the extra time. This is not a paying job for you, and you put an awful lot of time in, so we really appreciate that.
No problem.
Do you guys have any questions about the planning board or the?
I just had one question to clarify.
Sure.
So we are using a planner from Morris Associates?
So the engineer has planning experience.
Yes. Betsy told me we weren't using a planner when
He's
I
called-
asked.
no,
He's really the engineer.
If we need the
But
skills.
if we needed some planning eyes on it,
Okay.
if there was a planning issue that we felt, then we can lean on him also to help us out in that respect.
Because I will say at the first organizational meeting, when I thought we were still using Liz Axelson, because it wasn't clear to me that we weren't,
Yep.
I did go to Betsy with my concern, because in the industry, it's actually like a no-no to use a planner and engineer from the same company, because it's a little convoluted. It's not an independent set of eyes. So hearing this for the first time, after being told, no, we're just using an engineer, is a little concerning to me. And I know this doesn't really, it just was new information to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think
So
that
that's
we found.
concerning as a town, that we can get in a situation where they're not independently working. The independence brings about a higher integrity.
I think you misunderstood. I think you're okay. You'll be fine, because we have one attorney, we have we have two engineers. We have Pete Cetera, who's kind of the senior guy, the partner, and then Tom Harvey, who reports to him. We are not using a planner.
Oh, okay.
What Kevin is saying is that if we needed the skill, most of our work seems to be engineer related, right? And
Most of it is. I mean, most
Yeah.
of the planning stuff
Right.
is laid out
Big
for
stuff.
us in the code, and we can,
I mean, if you could only pick, rather than paying 3 consultants at every meeting,
Yeah.
if you could only pick your legal, which you absolutely have to have, and an engineer or a planner, who would you pick if you were only gonna?
yeah, I mean, the
what
engineer,
skill set
the
do you want?
engineer does a lot of the work,
Yeah.
the workload. The heavy lifting is the engineer, and then if we have a question about the law, then we'll ask Jim, and then.
So we opted out of a
Yeah,
planner,
and
really?
we opted out of a planner, and I think we had the same planner for years, and he almost ran the meetings. That was kind of maybe some of the problem as well. And he used to run the meetings, and I guess it worked then, but it seemed like it was not working anymore.
Okay.
And we found, we did plenty of research in other towns and what they do, and found that a lot of them don't use planners either. They rely on the planning board to do a lot of that. But we can always hire another outfit. We felt like we had to, we could always get an outside consultant. If we had a huge project in front of us or something that we weren't.
Yeah, I think
entirely
it's an
comfortable
interesting thing, Jim would know about this, but the planner, even the one, Liz Axelson, she seemed to work on Vassar Medical Center, or something. She seemed to work on very large projects. I'm sure this for her, was, not what she was used to, so I'm not sure we came to the conclusion we didn't need a planner. That we would use an engineer instead, isn't that right?
And there's always an option of bringing in a planner if we feel like something's above our head.
Did you have anything you wanted to add,
No,
now that you're on our team?
no, the decision to use a planner is one that could be taken up when there was a need for independent, separate planning. Work. And a lot of engineers who work in the municipal world have a pretty broad experience in what is planning related, because it's very close to the engineering function. But if you need a planner for a project, you could retain a planner for the project.
Pretty easily, yeah. Okay. Good, thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate all your hard work.
You want me to read Jane's letter since she's not able to attend?
Yeah.
Okay. Our ZBA chairman, Jane Smith, was unable to attend tonight because of a important family event. So she wrote a very nice letter that I'm going to read on her behalf. It's dated March 15th regarding Zoning Board of Appeals. Dear board members, I am unable to attend tonight's town board meeting, and I am writing to update the board on the recent work of the ZBA. First, the ZBA did not have any new applications on its agenda during the first quarter of 2018. We used our regularly scheduled meeting times in February and March to conduct 2 work sessions, and with additional work outside these meetings, the ZBA members developed and updated materials related to the ZBA. These include, number 1, a document for the town's website entitled General Information that provides an overview of the work of the ZBA, the kinds of relief that may be requested, the powers, duties, and procedures of the ZBA, general information about the meetings of the ZBA, and the criteria for granting various forms of relief by the ZBA. 2, a document entitled Requirements for an Appeal to the Unionville Zoning Board of Appeals, setting forth the documents that must be filed along with the filing fee for any application for relief before the ZBA, as well as a listing of materials that are recommended to be filed with any application. 3rd, a new application form. This work greatly facilitated by valuable input we received from Code Enforcement Officer George Kolb and Town Attorney James Nelson. We expect to finalize this work at our next meeting. I also provided input to the town supervisor, Betsy Moss, in connection with a job description for ZBA membership positions, and discussed with her, Mr. Kolb, and council current and proposed code provisions relating to the payment of escrow fees for the ZBA matters. With regard to escrow, I support the enactment of a new provision of the Unionville Code to provide a mechanism for the reimbursement of professional expense deemed reasonably necessary by the ZBA in connection with its review of application before the ZBA. Currently, code section 128-2C provides for an applicant's reimbursement of the costs of engineering, legal, or planning consultants when such professional services are considered necessary by the Zoning Board of Appeals in making an informed decision on the application through funds deposited in an escrow account, but only when the application is for a use variance. There is no comparable provision for consideration of applications for area variances or interpretations. In my experience of nearly 20 years on the ZBA, the need for professional services is the exception and not the rule. However, over the last few years, the ZBA has been presented with several complex and/or unusual area variance applications where the advice of legal counsel was needed. I believe it is appropriate for the applicant to defray the costs of such counsel when the ZBA considers the professional services necessary to ensure a proper review of the application. I understand that there may be neighboring towns that provide an escrow mechanism for doing so and urge Unionville Town Board to do the same. Respectfully submitted, Jane Smith, Chairman, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you, John. Okay, now we're going into departmental reports, and the first one up is Jessica Dickinson from our Recreation Department. Come sit.
Yeah. Nice to see you all. So we have, actually, I'll pass down, I'll just take it and pass it down, actually.
Okay.
I will start going over what you will see in front of you, and basically we have a lot going on as usual in this season, and what you can see on your paper is the upcoming events for March, April, and a tiny bit in May. What's exciting about May is the Godfrey Park Community Picnic. We have the middle school dance this Friday. We have the egg hunts, which we'll talk about in a little more detail in a second. And then we have our TGTT Spring Break Camp days during the last week of March. April 1st, our fishing season opening day begins, and then April 13th, we have an adult paint night. April 29th, we have our youth fishing derby, which is an annual event everybody loves. And April 30th, we have on the slate a full moon hike. May 5th is Love Your Park Day for everyone. And we're going to do a little community picnic at Godfrey Park to kick that off with hopefully a great game of kickball. We have some volunteer opportunities that I would like to voice, and at this time or any time after the town board meeting, if you're interested in any of those, please come see me. We're always looking for some helping hands, like our egg hunt coming up in just over a week, the fishing derby, and the Godfrey picnic. What do you need for the egg hunt? We actually are in need of just a bunny for the traditional egg hunt for an hour. We've got it taken care of with the other schedule of activities during the day, but if anyone is so inclined, we definitely could use an extra hopping friend.
What size is that costume?
It's one size fits all. However, just, come see me and we'll work something out. Just a tiny bit of extra detail about the egg hunt. We're very excited to continue our adaptive egg hunt experience for the second year. At 10 a.m. sharp, we will continue with the annual tradition of the regular style egg hunt, where it's very fast paced. I think if you've been to one, you understand that when we say 10 a.m. sharp, it means be there, or there may or may not be any eggs left. At 11 o'clock, we're going to have an hour that is a sensory-friendly hunt. You can drop in any time during that time frame. It's a more relaxed pace, and children can hunt for eggs in that environment, and we will have supplemental sensory activities so that we have something for everyone. From 1 to 3 on the same day, we will have a wheelchair-accessible hunt and a visually impaired hunt. If you remember from last year, we just focused on the visually impaired hunt, which went very well, and we had a lot of members of the community just ask for a little bit more, and it doesn't take too much more effort to include all abilities. So we're just hoping to expand it a little bit for anyone with any challenge or any ability to come out and see what that is all about.
Something important to note is you can drop in at any time during that time frame. You don't have to feel like you need to be there at 1 o'clock. So it's just ongoing activities from 1 to 3. I would like to preempt this by just thanking Kim Skorlik because she's been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and we've been working very hard together to make sure this is a great, memorable day. A couple other updates to end with is that we've solidified Beekman Youth Soccer back at Time War again for another great season on those soccer fields, and we are in the works with trying to get Godfrey Park kind of rejuvenated and used Monday through Friday in baseball season. So that is something exciting because Godfrey is a little gem that we need to love just a bit more.
That's such a cute
Yeah,
place.
and it's really made for baseball, I think. The more
Yeah.
we've been looking at it,
Yeah.
it's just such a great park because
Yeah.
it has that little corner of baseball, the pavilion, the restroom right there, and spots
Beautiful
for...
scenery all around. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just a great place for a family
So,
picnic.
and if anyone is interested or you know people that want to rent the facilities or enjoy a game, Godfrey Park is a really great asset that we have, and we're paying more attention to it, so.
Good.
And then we will continue to be seeking community volunteers, but one thing we want to focus on is working between myself and Betsy and the town board to coordinate a person to do some sponsorship guidance for our town rec programs, teams, and events so that we can offer the quality of programs that we're used to. So we will dive into that, and if anyone is willing to engage with sponsorship coordination, then please let us know, and we will learn as we go.
Yeah, we have somebody who's willing to help train.
Absolutely.
Which is nice.
So with the right connections and getting some volunteers on board to do that, we'll be off to a good start. And then lastly, to end, our camp and program registration is ongoing on the website, so please check that out, unionvalerec.com. And at the top of your page, you'll notice there's only 2 that you need to pre-register for those events. Other than that, you just come.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say one thing. Congratulations, you had a bang-up month in the month of February. You guys had people registering for all kinds of courses. The recreation department, from all of our financial reviews, we've changed some of the ground rules a little bit. And it looks to me like you're flourishing just fine. You're doing a great job, and you've got lots of people signing up. And I think it's great because with your help, we're going to get a lot more people to volunteer. And you didn't really blow your own horn, but just getting those fields, we want in our reviews. Remember, we really were hoping to get our fields launched, to get with people running them and enjoying them, and people coming out and using Time War. And you've done a great job with the Beekman team, and you're working really hard on Godfrey. It looks like you're close to closing something there that would be terrific. So great job. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And just
Great.
a question,
Yes.
for Beekman, is it 3 teams now?
I don't
Did it
know
move to
exactly
3
how many
fields? Okay.
teams. We did.
I mean fields.
We
2
did-
fields or 3?
It's 2, and we did create a third smaller one for a younger age group. That was kind of a makeshift thing, but it's working out really well for them, so they're going
Oh,
to
good.
continue using
They are
it.
gonna, okay,
Yeah.
Great
Absolutely.
job.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our next departmental report is Mr. George Kolb, who is head of the building department, and zoning administrator, code administrator, CEO.
All kinds of hats.
All kinds of things. Welcome, George.
Good evening, everybody.
MS4 as well.
MS4, yeah.
That was part of the HR discussion. The many hats you
I'm
wear.
sure it was.
What does he do?
As required, my monthly report has been issued to the town clerk for distribution to the town board members. We do that via email now, just so everybody knows, just to save paper. So, billing permits are starting to pick up considerably. It looks like we're in the within the projections for this year's budget. Normally, the board asks me for an anticipated revenue stream for the following year, so we're close to that. As some of the board members had said, we've had some pretty severe storms. My office, mainly through email, through the phone, was working closely with Central Hudson, the electrical inspection agencies, and my office to get this power restored to a lot of homes that actually lost their services to their house. We actually had one fire on Highview Road. The panel came off the house and burned, so that was ongoing pretty much the whole weekend. I'd like to stress again to the residents that email is the best way to get a hold of my department. I have a lot of people using email now, not only for questions, which are great, but actually applying for permits via email. We hope this year to get to the point where we're going to be accepting credit card payments. And quite honestly, if we can get to that point, you really don't have to come into my office. I mean, I can literally, if all the information's there, I can issue permits, collect the fee, and email the permit right out, which saves everybody a lot of time and that they don't normally have or want to come into the building department.
Well, the contractors. I'm
Yeah,
sure
well,
residents love it.
homeowners also. I have homeowners that are sending me applications Sunday night. I mean,
Wow.
because they don't want to come in. So it's great for the residents and the
nice.
contractors as well. Municipal searches for the home sales in the town. They are extremely high. For whatever reason, I'm not sure if it's because the interest rates are still low, but I'm probably doing anywhere from 8 to 12 a month. That's a lot for this town. As you know, we've adopted a new procedure on my recommendation to do on-site inspections. A little bit of a learning curve there for the title companies and the attorneys, but quite honestly, most of them love the way it's going now. I actually get the municipal searches.
Explain that.
Yeah, basically what happens is if you're, first of all, I'd like to recommend anybody that's contemplating selling their house, if it's in the future, to come to the building department, review their building file, make sure everything's in order with me. But if you do put your house up for sale, typically what happens if you go into contract, usually the buyer's attorney will institute what's called a municipal title search on the property. What that does is it triggers a request to my office to provide a report to that lawyer to make sure there's no violations on the property. Typically, in most towns are just doing a file search. The problem with that, as I discussed last year when we adopted this, is that if there's no violations in the file, the search goes off as a clearance, and ultimately there could be a problem with the house. And I had a lot of problems with new residents buying a problem. And the last thing I wanted to do is say, welcome to the neighborhood, and oh, by the way, you're in violation. So we ended that. So now what happens is when that municipal search comes to my office with all the information, we schedule an on-site, and it can be with the attorney, it can be with a lot of different people. I do a pretty extensive research of both my property file along with the tax file to make sure that all my information when I go out there is accurate. And then we do a physical search of the house, making sure the inventory in the house is correct with Robert Taft, our assessor. And then if we find something that was done without a permit, which does happen, they're required to bring it into compliance and get the proper permits, pay the fees. So it's been working out very well.
Great.
As we discussed earlier and Kevin discussed earlier, we've done a lot of work over the last several months with the supervisor, with the planning board chairman, with the ZBA chairman, with Joan Miller, to try to come up with a procedure and policy for each board. It's been a lot of work, and we're just starting these new procedures now. I think it's exciting. We've got a couple of very exciting projects. I believe hopefully they're going to come to fruition. We had resumed the work session meetings, which we just had last week, and we actually got compliments from both the applicants to say how happy they were that this town is doing this, so that they can realize what obstacles may be in front of them before they go. And it's at no cost to the town. These people are putting up a fee to pay for our professionals to be there, and it's working out very well. In addition to that, we're at our final year for the MS4, so now it's time to implement it. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have meetings with the supervisor, the highway, and the rec staff to go over training, maintenance procedures, as well as taking over our first drainage district. That's going to be implemented, and it has to be overseen by the town. The drainage fees have been coming in from the last tax cycle, so hopefully we have the money to take care of this and do the maintenance. Lastly, I provided quite a bit of research for some possible code amendments that we're going to be discussing in the future in the meeting. So that's pretty much it.
Stay with us, would you?
Okay.
Thank you, George.
If there's any questions or... Yeah, that was easy.
No, that was very thorough. Thanks very much. Okay, now we'll go into old business. Courthouse cameras. I think Dave covered them a little bit. Steve, did you have anything you could add there?
No, just they're on the way, and we'll have our coverage in place very quickly.
Great. So this is a project. We're just going to close it off tonight. It's all been voted on previously. We're implementing, and that will be a job well done. So this is
Yeah, it's going to
probably-
benefit everybody. I think
Yeah.
they did a great job with it.
Thanks for working on it, you guys, and we'll just consider that done. Now we'll move into new business, and we've got two very interesting discussions, and it's great that Jim Nelson is with us, our land use attorney, and of course, George. We were going to have, I don't know if you have if you have the lay of the land, this one from Jeff Battistoni, but I'm gonna start with George, and if you feel like adding anything to that discussion, Jim, feel free. Basically, what we're gonna do here tonight is talk about two interesting, first a winery, brewery type thing, and then we're gonna talk about signs. And I'm gonna have George start it off, and these discussions are lead-ins to future town code changes to accommodate. That's why we wanted to have this discussion first and let everybody hear what everybody's thinking. There will be a time in the future at a public hearing for people to come up and share other opinions. Tonight, the town board is trying to learn more about it. So it's not open for discussion, but it will be at the future public hearing. So I want everybody to save your questions or comments for then, if you don't mind. So George, why don't you lead us off on the first one so everybody can be informed. Thank you. So everybody can be informed on craft breweries and some of the things that are going on there. And
Yep.
what we should be aware of.
And as Betsy said, as everybody's, I'm sure, aware, New York State has really petitioned to actually provide tax incentives for these, what I call artisanal uses, farm uses in the state of New York. The many breweries, distilleries, wineries that you've seen, not only in New York State, but actually all over the country. So we have one particular gentleman that's looking to do a small-scale distillery in the town of Unionville. He came to me approximately 2 years ago, probably more than 2 years ago, possibly 3 years ago.
3 years.
To present himself, to say he wants to start up a small distillery. At that point in time, I asked him exactly what he was going to do, grow the apples on his property. He's got a fairly sizable farm off of Brush Hill Road. I said, if you're just going to distill off your own apples, it's a farm use, there's no problem. He says, well, George, he goes, eventually what I'd like to do is have a tasting room. And that's the trigger. That's the trigger in ag and markets. It's a trigger in the building code as well. As soon as you're allowing the public to use the facility to that extent, it triggers other things. So in order to keep ahead of the curve here, Betsy asked me to try to research and come up with some kind of form of a possible code amendment, either to the bulk regulations or in some, expanse to just allow these types of uses. And I went all over the place for this. I probably called 15 to 16 towns within our area. Most towns are trying to deal with this, and I'll leave it at that, trying to deal with it. Nobody has really established a law for these types of uses, but other states have. So a lot of the information that I pulled up here came from Pennsylvania, came from New Jersey, some upper counties in New York State that have quite a few wineries. And I try to look at it globally so they weren't just doing this for one particular person, because the hope is, and in New York State, the hope is that you have this tourism generate into your town, as well as keeping these farms alive. Right. And that's the big push here. So a lot of these laws that were done in other states and in upper state New York did it globally, and they talk about everything. And the word that kept on coming up was artisanal, and I guess that would cover a lot of different things. It could cover the breweries, the wineries, the distilleries, maple syrup, as you all know. The town of Dover has an enormous maple syrup that is apparently doing fantastic. Mm-hmm. And it's allowing that property to retain somewhat of a farm. Mm-hmm. I actually came to the board two supervisors ago and explained, pitched this, and said, listen, I want to make sure you guys are okay with this. And they said, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Well, now 3 years have passed, and this particular gentleman has his still in and is operating in full compliance, has a building up, and now wants to go to the next level and have a tasting room. I don't have any plans in, but assume that you're probably looking at 10 to 20 to 30 people to have in this room. And my concern is that the town has some sort of control on this, because as any business, you hope that you expand and you do great. And the problem is, not the problem, but my concern is that if we approve something, or I could possibly approve something at 20 people, a year later, if he's doing well, the next thing we have is possibly some buses coming in, or whatever coming in, and that's my concern. So I'm trying to help this gentleman do this, but in hopefully passing some sort of legislation, it would be encompassing so that we could allow, let's say, a winery to come in, or a syrup maple place, or whatever. So that's really the extent
So,
of it.
but, yeah, so our intent here is to explore how we might do it.
Right.
Because my understanding is, you can correct me wherever I go astray here, I'm talking to the Ag and Markets people, my understanding is that this gentleman, now he doesn't have an application in, so it's kind of a theoretical conversation, but it's kind of an exciting concept if you have 15 acres of land and you want to take 5 and grow something and sell it to people, either in a farm stand or ultimately in a tasting room. There's a lot of land in Unionville that could be available for that, and but he was saying that these people, that basically that they could go a different route, which is what you and I talked about the other day, that because if they got 51% of their product, that they could actually go, kind of bypass the town. You want to explain that? Or you want me to-
Well, I don't want to contradict what Mr. Somers from Ag and Markets said, so there's probably several ways that the town can do this, and I want to make it as easy as we possibly can for the farmer. But it's really up to the board to decide how we should do this, or maybe advice from the attorney. But
Definitely,
the problem, the issue that I have is, and I know Mr. Somers very well. I dealt with him on a lot of different ag products. Here's the issue. Ag and Market's sole job is to make sure farms function and can produce and stay a farm. And they do allow a lot of uses on the farm that will supersede a town ordinance. Even if there is something in the in the ordinance, we have to make it very streamlined for them to get an approval.
Isn't that like mining? If somebody has over 10 acres of land, they can have a mining operation on there, even if you wouldn't want it in your neighborhood. They're allowed to do it if they have over 10 acres.
We have a pretty lengthy process. Kevin's not here anymore. A process to get a special use permit to do mining, though. That it's much more labor intensive.
So the town is okay.
Yeah, the farms are a little bit different.
Pretty similar.
Yeah. Now, again, I think they're going to, even if we establish a process to do this, Mr. Somers, he should review it as well, because he's Ag and Markets. But they're going to want a streamlined approach to doing this. That's what they want.
And we talked about one way to protect the town would be to subsequently have a special event permit, which we do not have.
Right.
So if somebody started something like this and then they started morphing into something that might, be too big, or something that people, the way that some towns clamp on this is through a special event permit that can be denied. So, you could kind of, so there are ways to deal with but as far as, let's ask Jim if he can comment
The other
on how
thing
you
that me and
started.
Betsy discussed too is that, again, there's several approaches to this, but it seems to me that you could establish some kind of legislation that would give me, and it's just a possibility, give me parameters to issue a permit out of my office without going through the full-blown process of going and getting a special use permit from the planning board. So you would set conditions that I would have to make these people adhere to. So let's hypothetically, let's say this gentleman comes in and the area that he's using is 1,000 square feet. I'm just saying it for a number. And you look at that and say, you know what, that type of use with a narrative, a very explicit narrative that I get from a lot of applicants on exactly what you're doing, hours of operation, the amount of people that you're possibly maybe bringing in, and set the perimeter at, let's say, 1,500 square feet, and I can do it out of my office. Anything more than that would have to go to the planning board for a special use permit. But that's just a thought.
But here's another way of doing the same thing, not putting a square footage restriction on it, because according to them, the people in Ag and Markets, they were saying that there are two paths to get here. One path is the farmer that grows 51% of his ingredients on his farm, and he's got an easier path, and they've been quite successful, these guys that want to make more money on their own land. And there's another path that in New York State where farmers are allowed to, if they're not really farming, they're not growing 51% of their ingredients, but they're allowed to pursue their liquor license, let's say if they wanted to have a tasting room, they would be allowed to buy, I think it's 4, they can buy, as long as they buy from 4 farmers, 4 of their ingredients, they're allowed to buy them. Now, what they explained to me is those are the people on that path that aren't the true farmers, but they're still allowed to buy ingredients from us, that those are the people that are more at risk into morphing into all kinds of things. But the ones that seem to be the real traditional farmers that have 51% of their ingredients grown on their, those seem to be whatever they tell the town they are, they seem to stick with that. So one of the things that we may want to entertain is, based on the research that these people have done and the data that they have, maybe the people that are growing 51% and are standard farmers, maybe it's something for you to tell us. We let George give them permission, because the data suggests that those people are standard, regular, not confining it to a square footage amount. And then the other people that have a history of morphing into things that are probably more complicated, have them run through the whole planning board cycle or system and make that, make sure that they're, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. That'd be another way to do it. Then you're not confined by space, but you've got the path of the people that are traditional farmers here in Unionville that want to use more of their land. That'd be another way. I don't know that I'd want to restrict you, because, you'll know right away.
Well, what happens when that person, he builds a fair size and he says it's going to be this way here, and then he sells it? What kind of restrictions do you have?
I don't know, that's a good question.
What kind of restrictions do you have on the new tenant or the new owner?
Yeah, good question.
I think it depends on the use. You could have a building, and the exemption that the agricultural use enjoys is based on the use. So if someone, I love books, but if somebody were to convert a tasting room that got an exemption into a bookstore, they would find themselves being introduced to Mr. Cole, who would probably say that is or is not a permitted use in this zone, and if you would like to do it, you need site plan approval or perhaps a special permit.
I'm just worried about them trying to expand it.
Well, I think, let me come around this. You have the Ag and Markets Law. It provides an exemption, All right. On the other hand, the towns are not divested of their authority to assure that public health and safety are met. And so you frequently end up with situations where it's a gray area, or it's a kind of square pegish in a round hole, where you have standard site plan and special permit procedures that don't quite fit the situation that Ag and Markets is looking for to be supportive of true farming operations. So one of the things might be to take the more simplified procedure that the administrator is talking about, as well as the thresholds that the supervisor is talking about, and they might fit together nicely to assure that safety is there, and that under a certain threshold, I'll finish, it would be administratively approved, as opposed to having to come in to the planning board. I don't know if that answers your question. No?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you're not going to get a guy that comes in and all of a sudden decides he's going to turn his tasting room into a nightclub.
Well, here's the thing, like any permit that I issue, especially in a case like this, there's going to be a very explicit narrative, exactly how they're going to. In addition to that, in this case, the gentleman's going to be building an additional building attached to this distillery to put this tasting room.
Right.
So I'm going to have a set of plans in front of me that I'm going to hopefully approve, and they have to abide by those plans. And I believe, depending on the threshold here, and this is another question I'll have for the Department of State, is that I'm required to inspect these places, something like this probably every 3 years, but no less than 3 years, or no less than 3 years. So I would know if he expanded that use without my knowledge. It's just like a commercial, when I issue a commercial permit, it's based on the plans. If I go out there at a further time, whether it's the fountains or whether it's a new gas station, whatever it is, and it's not following the plan that was either submitted to me or i.e. the planning board, they're in violation. That's how that works. So I'm not worried about that. I can control the expansion. Our concern here is that how do we try to make this work here as simplified as possible? That's the goal here.
Yep.
And make sure everybody's in agreement with doing this. I mean, you know, I think we are. I hope we are.
We have a couple of young farmers that came in to see me on a Saturday. They were so excited. They said, you know, we really want to be a farmer. We really want to be here in Unionvale, and it's harder than you guys think it is. And they're always searching for new ways. And I had mentioned this to them, and they're very excited because if they get their hands on enough land and they can, you know, use it for more and actually make some money, then they're going to stay. You know, they'll be here. So it's.
I mean, you know, the list of these types of uses goes on. I mean, you could have somebody that wants to have 1,000 beehives and do honey. That's a possibility here. So that's why I keep on labeling it as an artisanal use, you know.
This could be, maybe this is our niche.
Yeah. You know, and again, as Jim said, it's tough with ag and markets because there's a lot of gray areas. And you find yourself, at least in my, it's difficult sometimes because you don't want to fight with ag and markets, but on the other side of it, you know, you want some kind of control. And they understand that too, except that they want it as simplified as possible to help the farmers.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the attorney if we had any right to regulate hours of operation for places like this. Because that would answer Dave's question there.
Well, I believe he put it right in this sample. Days of operation, days and hours of operation and public access shall be approved.
Yeah.
That would be part of the permit, George?
That would be.
Well, again, that in the narrative.
Okay.
You know.
Right.
Now, I don't know what would occur or whether I would have the right, as Steve just said. Let's say I have a gentleman, I hate to use a specific example. I have one of these users come in and say, well, you know what? We want to run this thing Friday through Sunday and start at 6 and end at 11 o'clock. You know, I mean, am I allowed to say, well, wait a minute, you can't do that? That would be one of the things I'll need to discuss with the attorney.
And that was kind of my question.
Yeah.
I think you can regulate hours through a special permit process. I don't think you can regulate them through a site plan process because that relates to the physical development of the site. And I'm not going to hazard a guess whether if you went to an administrative process, whether you could delegate to the administrator the ability to regulate hours.
Right.
But maybe you could in the code.
In the code, or we could put it in the code, and then it becomes part of the permit
But aren't some of these
on the list.
agricultural operations that are exempt from code?
Yeah.
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 So that, that would be a problem in that respect.
Well, because the public portion of it,
The tasting part?
technically, it doesn't fall under ag and markets. Although
Okay.
he's producing the materials and distilling it, that like.
So that would be considered
He can go
separate.
out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and spray his apples. There's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
But
Once
the
it brings
tasting
people
room
in.
could be under
Like a
Yes.
non-agricultural.
That's what I'm overseeing. I'm not even really overseeing other than the separation from the patrons to the distillery. Even the distilling part, I've got really my hands off. It's, you know,
It's just
it's where the public is concentrated.
Okay.
That's my concern.
Yeah, I think that's how we can kind of address your concerns there, is with the hours of operation.
And then is a special use permit versus a special events permit? Like if somebody had a big barn and they decided they wanted to have weddings in their barn, and we wanted to issue, we didn't want a 1,000-person wedding because the roads couldn't handle it, there wasn't enough parking, but maybe, you know, a 300-person wedding, George felt like the location could handle that. Would that be easier if our administrator could handle that as a special event permit as opposed to going through a special use permit?
Mass gathering permits are usually different from special use permits, which is.
That's what I thought, 'cause I saw special
planning or
use in
Zoning
here.
board.
Yeah.
Mass gathering permits, I think, can be handled administratively.
Yeah.
See, I think separating, and one of the lines here says special use, so we can change this, obviously, and to get it ready for when we have our, what is that, the resolution of introduction for the public hearing?
Yeah, and again, I don't want to speak for Mr. Summers, but I believe, because we've been trained on some of this as much as they could possibly train us on this. It appears the reason that language, special event permits, is in there, because a lot of these artisanal uses, I want to say an apple orchard, that, like Bard's Apple Orchard, they will have an event where they could bring literally thousands of people in for a specific event.
Right.
That's what that triggers for, so that the building department is allowed to say, okay, you're going to have this event this particular weekend, and you're going to approximately have 2,000 to 3,000 people here. We need to take a look at this for safety
Right.
and all of that. So that's what those are for.
And that's a great control mechanism.
Yes, and that's what it's
If it
for.
could be done out of your office, I actually think that's better than a special use permit and having to go through.
Yeah. And in that case, the applicant, in this case it'd be Bard Orchards, would say, okay, we need to know how you're going to do the traffic control,
Right.
what provisions you're going to have for safety, and, where are these
What
people going
hours
to
of
gather.
operation. Yeah.
Yeah, so all those things are in that special event permit.
That's yeah, it sounds like that would be great, being handled in your office.
And we have had several instances where I've had some of your large landowners call me about possibly having wedding events in their barns, because that's a big thing now. And it's tough for me to refuse it, but I almost have to.
But if we passed this, the wording of which has to be, obviously reviewed and gone over, and we could do this next month, kind of bring up the language so people get used to it, we could have a public hearing on it, but if we passed this same thing, it would work for a wedding at a family barn, right?
Yep.
So they would be hindered by that. So all these additional land uses for our residents that want them.
The goal is not to stop, the goal is to have a little bit of
Exactly.
control on it so it doesn't get out of hand, and it's safe.
Yeah.
Just like the tasting room, my concern, first and foremost, is that it's safe. So if the public comes in there, it's safe.
So what we'll do, is there any other comments or questions?
I mean, does the concept sound?
Sounds very positive to me.
I mean, that's what the discussion, I think, is here.
Jim, do you have any other advice or anything that you'd give us now, or, okay. What we'll do is we'll get our, I guess it's the resolution of introduction, will be prepared early, and then we will send it out, make it available so people can come in for the public hearing and we can hear what people think about it. Okay? We'll send that out. So remember, our next board, the meeting where we would have a discussion and a vote on anything is April 19th. Mark that on your calendars, and we'll get the resolution out to you. Let's try to do that a week in advance so that everybody has time to look at it.
And again, in the meantime, if any of the board members have any, I'm sure you're going to have questions as you either review that, or just email me and I'll try to get you an answer. I try to get you an answer.
It's really interesting, George.
But I've got a
This
pile
is
of work
great.
on my desk like this thick on both of these issues with, this first issue and the next
Yeah.
one. It's a lot of research.
Excellent
sure it
job. And
was.
this is great for our,
Did a
for
nice
some of our
job.
residents. This is really exciting. So thank you very much.
It's great for the whole town.
Yeah, it could be good for the whole town. So if there's no further questions on that, we'll close that discussion. Move into our second discussion, digital signage for the town center and neighborhood commercial, and that is, everybody has this package. That write-up also done by George. We've been keeping him so busy now.
This topic's been around for a while, too.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's around almost every town. Everybody's still trying to wrangle with it.
So you want to give I know you're tired of talking, but
No,
you mind
no,
giving
it's
us another
okay.
overview?
And as the script and the research shows, this is actually specifically relates to what they term as a digital sign. I'm sure you've seen them. Arlington High School has one. Many of the banks have them. Believe it or not, a lot of town halls have them.
Yep.
They're very efficient. They get the message out. The way they look is up for your own judgment. But they are very popular now, and a lot of towns, again, I've done a lot of research on this, are trying to. They realize that they're needed, but there needs to be, again, control on it, and it runs the gamut. I believe there's 3 different types of digital signs: how they operate, when they operate, the brightness, and the list goes on. We have one gentleman, B Wise, that everybody knows is in the TC zone, actually the only business out there. He had approached me probably a year ago about his sign is actually falling apart. It's over 20 years old and it's falling apart. He came in with a rendering of a brand new sign, very much like that, except with a digital sign on the base of it. At that time, we discussed at length with the attorney then that we do not allow internally lit signs in the town. And I made the determination that, in fact, it was an internally lit sign. He made petition to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance, and there was, lack of a better word, there was a lot of confusion on it, on what or how the ZBA should handle it. What they suggested to the owner was to come back to the town board to have a possible code amendment to allow some sort or that type of sign where he is. So he's got an application sitting in front of us right now. In doing this research, as most of you should be aware, we do have a new gas station coming in. The old Hitzman garage is being redesigned. And I'm sure that you've seen probably every gas station that's built in the last 20 years has a digital sign for their display of their gas pricing. And that's in front of me as well. So what I did was I tried to put together all of this research, look at the zones where gas stations are allowed in a town, look at the TC zone, and come up with at least a baseline of where we could start this discussion. And that's where we're at. The owner of Beeswise, naturally he's in my office or in Betsy's office probably every week, wants to know where we're at with it. And I said, well, it's up for discussion tonight. So that's where we're at. So the research that I put together and again, the baseline to start the discussion, it's kind of all there in front of me. Again, this language was pulled from all over the place. Because, as I said, most towns are wrangling with this and trying to come up with some sort of allowed use but control on it.
So in our town, TC is Town Center.
Town Center.
Which is on Route 55.
Right.
And NC is Neighborhood Commercial.
Correct.
Which, in that case, you're talking about the gas station.
Burbank
on
area.
80, on Route 82. I just want to clarify for people that might hear this at home later.
Yeah, 82 and 55, yeah.
Okay,
He
so.
actually has a map of it here.
Yeah, does anybody, I'd like to hear your gut reaction about an LED sign, if you guys don't mind, because I know that's a big change for our town.
Well, I would think it's nice, it's going to increase the assessment, and we can get more tax money.
There you go.
That, and the fire company has actually talked about them. The two firehouses.
Wow.
I mean, they're here. We can't really ignore them.
Right.
We've got to deal with it. We've got to put it in the code so it can be properly done, and there's no two ways about it.
Now, in your thing here, you're saying gas stations would be limited to gas pricing area?
That's it.
I mean, is it just the gas prices, or can they have other?
No, just the pricing. Now, again,
That was-
I don't want to speak like a lawyer here, but my understanding is that initially this was challenged because I believe there must have been a township somewhere that forbid it at a gas station. And my understanding is it was challenged in court, and it was overturned because apparently there is a procedure where once the gas price changes, they have a certain amount of time to change it on their sign.
Right.
And they've allowed these, so that, again, I'll leave that up to the attorney, but that's my understanding.
It's a state law requirement, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've got no problem with that. I just wanted to know if they're going to be able to put up big signs saying that we've got milk on sale and et cetera.
no, for the gas, again, this is just the information I'm giving you. It's not, I don't want to inject my opinion here. This is the information. The information in some areas states that they will limit to the gas stations only to the pricing for the gas. Purely that's it. So every other part of the sign ordinance they would have to be in compliance with.
Yeah, we're down at Times Square, and those
Let's
are the
not do
type of signs. Those are the
That's not a
type,
good analogy.
No, there's an LED sign.
that's exactly what we're talking about here, though. It's
No,
the
because
same
he's got
type of sign. Yes, it
Yeah.
is, it is.
Yeah, but he's got restrictions on the size of the signs in here.
Yeah, understand them, but there are some parallels that I have some concerns about. I'm not opposed to the idea at all. It is what is out there today is modern technology, and I have, since this came to my attention, I've been paying attention as I drive around as to what's going on in other areas. One of the recommendations I would make is that we put a limit on the rate of change that the frames, isn't it? That's
in here.
Okay.
It's all,
And that, still, because I'm not interested in seeing animated signs.
Well, and that's, if you read through this, and I can get you as much information as you want, I have it in there, I didn't want to give you 6 inches of paper. There's 3 or 4 main things that they talk about. They talk about just what you're talking about, and most towns are limited to what they consider a static sign, meaning whatever comes up remains for, I think I have 30 seconds in
30
there
seconds, yeah.
before it can change to the next one. No scrolling, no movie type of, it would just be static. And I've explained this, this hasn't been to the owner of BeWise. But I've explained, listen, these are the concerns of the board, and quite frankly, the planning board's going to have as well. They're not going to want you to show a movie out there,
Do
No.
you want them giving Amber Alerts?
Well, again, a lot of the towns in their zoning ordinances actually mandate, I guess they can mandate, that they are allowed to put up public service notices on the sign itself. So if you have an Amber Alert, if you had, an emergency at the town hall, if you don't have any heat, come to the town hall, they can display it. So that's one of the advantages, of course, that the owner is telling us, listen, I can afford to town this. That if you have a special announcement for the town, a community day, election, whatever, whatever's pertinent. I mean, it can't be anything, but, those public announcements would be allowed to be put on his sign. And that's all.
I think we could use one at the recycling center.
What, come in here?
No, I mean, to give public information about our town and our recycling and everything else.
Working with the fire company, we might be able to get a deal.
Okay.
These signs aren't cheap, I can tell you
No,
that.
I was shocked at how much they
No,
cost.
they're not, but
They're shockingly
very
expensive.
expensive.
But for not-for-profit organizations, there are, especially fire departments and
Grant money.
towns, you can get grant money.
Okay.
Oh. And just saying that after Steve mentioned Times Square, it's like, I don't know if I want to see one at the recycling center, and boom, here's BeWise. I mean, they're right next to each other. It's like,
Yeah,
that's
right.
where we start, like, what happened?
Yeah.
No, it's
Well,
true, it's a
again,
slippery slope.
Well, I would say look at the one at the Arlington High School. That's a very good taste.
Yeah,
It's effective.
very well done.
Yeah, and,
They've got it in front of the Wikipedia Firehouse.
Yeah.
And that's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And I believe those are what's considered a static sign. They're just posting, whether
Yeah.
the school's open or whatever they post on there.
But the BeWise sign is not going to be like the Arlington High School sign. It's like,
No.
how tall is that sign, do you know? Do you remember?
Their sign right now?
As tall as their sign now.
Yeah. No, it's not going
It's
to be
gonna
that
be-
big. No, it's only going to be I believe there's a
But
sketch.
it's got a cupola on it.
It's only the lower portion of the sign.
yeah, it's on the back here.
Oh, yeah, no, I know the digital part, but I mean, the whole sign overall is quite
Large.
Yeah, it's like
large
19
and
feet
tall,
high, yeah.
not the digital.
And that's
part.
already there. I mean, we're just
Yeah.
talking about the additional.
Right, so it would look like it is
Digital part.
now. It's
Yeah.
like a digital thing.
But new.
But that was,
And it is
And not
falling
falling
apart.
It's not falling
Yeah.
down.
that was a question I had when I read through it. You said the size of the sign can only be 150 square feet.
Yeah, what I tried to do is I looked at what he's proposing. I also looked at what the gas station's proposing, and quite honestly, other signs that we have in the town we don't have a lot of businesses here, but the ones we do, and try to come up with a baseline for the size that wouldn't exceed what we have here now. That's what that's for.
Right.
The other issue came up is, the approval for that sign. I'm not sure if it was done right, wrong, or
The
different.
BeWise.
But I'm not going there. The sign's been here for almost 20 years. The sign is what it is. I want to try to make sure that whatever, if in fact what we do, brings that into compliance. That's what I want to do. Not just for that sign, for all signs.
Right.
But
Including,
that means that would mean, and the people would need to understand this, and we have to discuss this at the public hearing, that would mean that the neighborhood commercial the Route 82, which has a lot of houses behind it, that would mean that you want similar sizes. If you're trying to bring them into compliance, then that would mean that in TC or also in the NC zone, that they would be permitted. You're recommending, not recommending, but you're.
Well,
Can
again.
we restrict one zone from the other? I mean,
Yeah, because-
you wouldn't want a size this large.
Well, but
In Burbank, right?
and most towns do it this way. It's dictated by either the size of the building, the frontage that you have on the road, or many. I took what we have now, what's being proposed, and tried to fit it into. I think it's based on the linear footage of the building, which most townships, that's the way they're done, to a maximum size. So if you took the gas station, let's say, there's no way they could have a sign that big, because it's much smaller than the B-Wise building. And that's what I did. I correlated the square footage of the signs to the size of a building. So
So they're
B-Wise would fit into
proportional,
that.
Okay.
The Hitzman gas station, the one they're proposing, may not be as big as what they're proposing, but it would fit in with that, the linear frontage of the building. That's how most towns do
Now,
it.
is it legal, I mean, are you allowed to have different sizes for different zoning districts?
It's not different. It's based on the linear footage of the building. You're limited
If we
by
wanted to
that.
base it on something else, could we do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So we have the flexibility, I just want to make sure it was legal. I know there's,
Some-
you're not allowed to have spot zoning and all that sort
Yeah,
of
some
stuff.
townships do it by actual frontage, which I'm not sure how you do that. I mean, you could have a building this big, and you could have 2,000 feet of frontage on a road, and you'd be able to have a sign the size of, I don't know what. I don't get it.
Right.
But
I think the B-Wise is interesting because, he's been here 20 years, he's a good resident, and they work, we don't have that many, they're in the town center, they're over there all by themselves. But I also think that the gas station, if you go and look at Morona's and the gas station in Millbrook, it's a sign, it's a big, one of those neon, but it's very old-fashioned, it's quaint, it fits in, it's nice. I just think that our residents in Burbank may not want, they may want their own, something, they might want more restrictions. And I want to know.
Well, the other thing that some of this information I gave you, I'm proposing too that any sign needs to be approved architecturally from the planning board. So,
But residents would worry about being rubber stamped by a board. I mean, it does happen. Not in our town, it doesn't happen. But I've heard of it happening in some places, and I'm just saying, if we could give some thought to how we might handle something near a neighborhood, we need advice from council
Yeah.
versus our town center on Route 55. They're just so completely
I
different.
understand.
So, I think it should come up, and we should talk about that at the hearing and make sure people know nothing to be upset about. The ideas that they come with might be good, and we could customize something that would work for us. And still make it easy for them to get in.
I understand it. This town is very rural, and I understand all that. You have these cute little hamlets, and that's all
Yeah.
taken into consideration. But I will tell you this, I've been here, going on my 8th year here, and it's probably one of the biggest complaints I get from anybody proposing to put a business here is how restrictive, your sign code is very restrictive. And that's fine. I'm just saying, it's very restrictive.
Stuff for candidates.
Something for us to think about. while we're-
There you go.
No, I think, as a town, we need to encourage, we have very precious little commercial space. We should be as cooperative we can to potential businesses because we need them. We need the revenue. And the residents need the services. So we shouldn't be throwing up roadblocks. We should be working with them and developing current laws that are dealing with current type of sign that you would use.
I think we could probably address any criticism that somebody might have, though, right?
I mean, again,
We're in good shape.
I know the concern is the neighborhood commercial, and I understand that. Just bear in mind, like the garage that we're working on right now, I mean, I have it down to where, actually, I met with the architect today. He's actually given me cut sheets of every single light, exterior light, that's going on that building to be approved by the planning board, including the siding of the building, the colors of the building, the colors of the shingles.
Right.
So,
And tell them that there were a couple of things submitted before that had been rejected.
oh yeah, I knew they weren't going to accept it. That's not going to work. So, but I think it's exciting. I think it's going to be exciting.
It's gonna be a
I really
nice-looking
do. It's going to
building
be
at
a
the
really
end.
nice looking building. That being said, same thing with the sign. they have a proposal to sign, these are business people, and that's fine, but the planning board is going to need to approve that sign.
Yeah.
The problem, though, that we're faced with, or I'm faced with, is that what's being proposed, whether it's here or the gas station, is not in compliance with our code. And,
So it's our job to help with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, well, and the ZBA is, you know, without saying it, is saying, listen, you know what, we're having these signs come in, we hate to give it a variance when really it should be adopted in the code.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what
They're right, yeah.
That's what they're saying. So it got kicked back.
Especially for potential business people wanting to come into the town. If they see it's in the code to their liking, they're more likely to proceed with a business.
We do need those,
Yeah.
like I said.
So, I mean, I know it's a lot to look at and research, but again, with this one too, same thing. If you go through this, Steve, anybody have a question, George, do me a favor, research this. I have no problem doing it as long as I can find the time, but I'll do it. But it's a mountain. I mean, you just Google digital signs and whack, you get 1,000 hits.
Wow.
You know, and you can do it yourself if you like. I mean, you go and just, you know, town codes or provisions for digital signs, and you're going to get a lot of information. So you try to take pieces of everything that's going to fit with this town, and that's what you have there.
So thank you very much for this. Is great. And what we will do is we'll try to put together something that will worth proposing, and then we'll do that at the next meeting and have a public hearing to hear people's thoughts. Okay?
Okay, just one more quick question. Sure. On it, you said, you know, the 150 feet, you know, square feet, right? If it's a two-sided sign, that would be 75 feet on each side?
I don't have that in front of me. You have to read it. It's all in there, Dave. You just got to read it. It does talk about
If a
two
double-sided
sides.
all the
sign is
specifics
proposed, then both surfaces calculations
Right.
are included in the,
Right.
okay, in the total surface area.
Because I wanted to make sure that if we set the limit, let's say, I don't know, pick a size, and that was the size that you guys approved, let's say. And then somebody came in with a double-sided sign, or only a one-sided sign, and all of a sudden the thing is going to be the size of a billboard. You didn't want that. So that's what it, but you're going to have, like this BY sign is a two-sided sign, and I'm sure the gas station, again, if this is done, it's same thing. It's not going to be one-sided. You're going to be, the digital pricing for the gas will be on both sides of the sign. So that's got to be limited, you know. So that's the, you know, and again, these are just information off of other websites. You guys can pick and choose and do whatever you want.
So we'll have to study these and see how we want to adjust them, and might talk to our legal counsel, get some advice there, and then we'll come up with something in writing that we can distribute.
The most complicated part of this really is that static issue I was talking about, because it gets very lengthy on how to, you know, they have distances, that sightline distances to get it, but typically it seemed like it was 30 seconds per image.
Yeah.
It shouldn't change any more than that. And also intensity. Nits, apparently they're registered or measured in nits.
Yeah,
So there's-
5,000.
Now, these are all federal studies, so you kind of got to go, okay. And then the difference between night and day. Naturally, you need it a little bit brighter at night. During the day, night, it's got to tone down. And many of these ordinances, that needs to be certified in my office that you're meeting those conditions by a certified outside person that says, yep, it's running at 2,000 nits, you know.
Nits.
It gets a little
Is
complicated.
that a
You
consultant?
know, some of the
that you put in the
sign
escrow
people
book?
that I've talked to, they said it almost goes automatically by some.
Yeah, they probably,
They
these
have
sign makers
sensors-
know that.
Yeah, they have the
Yeah.
sensors right.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
Prohibited content.
George, before you go,
It's gonna be
could
interesting.
you just maybe go over very quickly guidelines on portable generators? Because there's been a lot of
Yeah.
problems with the power outages.
Yep.
I think people need to be a little more educated on what they should be doing.
Yeah. As John stated, we had a little bit of an issue with a group home that was running a generator way too close to the house with an open garage door, and actually we almost had some fatalities. It's not atypical. It does happen. First of all, any generator, every generator, portable generator that's hooked into a system in the house needs a permit from my office. That's the first thing. Whether it's portable, whether it's permanent, it needs a permit. There are recommendations from the Department of State that a portable generator should be a minimum of 20 feet from the house. Minimum 20 feet from the house. When a permit's issued, especially for a portable generator, from my office, all of these regulations are submitted with that building permit. So hopefully these people read it, understand it, and are not operating these generators anywhere near their house. Even with closed windows and doors, the CO2, they've done studies, the CO2 can enter into the house, and especially due to the fact they're gasoline powered. So they're much worse than a propane type generator like we have here. They burn much cleaner, the gasoline ones don't. So again, it's like John says, very important. Stress, they need building permits and the instructions that go along with them when I issue a permit and the certificate of compliance. So
Thank you.
it's important. And CO2 detectors, I can't stress it enough. You know, the only time I have the time to enforce it is when a property gets transferred. But everybody should have a CO2 detector in their house. They're important. Whether it's a malfunction with oil burner, or whether it's a portable generator that's not away from the house, and the only reason they knew it, their CO2 went off.
Yeah, it saved lives, really.
Yeah. You know, and there's a state-run, I believe it's a state-run.
No, actually, it was privately run.
Privately run. It didn't realize it needed a building permit to put a generator in.
But they,
Let alone,
but it was so close.
you know, hooking it up electrically wrong and backfeeding into a pole and, you know, knocking one of these guys from Vermont and killing it, you know, so. It's important, you know, again, I make it as easy as possible to get permits out of my office, so you can do it on a Sunday night.
And we're going to have, there's a little commercial, our next meeting on April 19th, we're going to have the fire district, they're going to come and give us a report. Mostly, we're going to be talking about EMS and rescue, and then we'll talk to the fire people, the fire district people later, but it'll be interesting to hear. I'm sure they've had a very busy winter. So.
Yeah, it's been the last few storms, and we've had a lot of snow, and but my department is busy. I'm issuing a lot of permits, so it's a good thing. Yes.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank
Anybody
you, George,
else?
for all the hard work.
Okay.
A lot of excellent work, thank you.
Night.
So we've got our work cut out for us on that. A lot of Okay. So we will come back to everybody on both of those issues. All right. And then we have something tonight which will kind of follow the same path. When we finish our resolutions, we have a couple of easy resolutions, and then we have the introduction of a local law, which is going to be the same path that we will take, you know, with the next ideas that we were talking about this evening. So now, in regards to the first two resolutions we have, I just wanted to explain to everybody that the first one is the town fee schedule, which is typically approved at the organization meeting in January, but we hadn't finished conducting the studies and the financial reviews with some of these departments so that we could get the numbers in line with what everybody wanted, so we took a little more time and did that. So that's why we're doing it this month, and I guess next year we'll probably be ready to go in the January meeting.
Okay.
Okay, John, do you want to read the first one? It's a very lengthy.
Yes. Be it resolved that the Town Board of Town of Unionville does hereby approve the master fee schedule for 2018, see attached. Now be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Unionville does hereby approve the following...
That's the next
That's
one.
the second.
Oh, that's the second one already?
You just get the first one.
Just the first one.
Do you want me to read the fees?
All of them. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. All right, because...
They're available.
Wait, you know, do you
Yeah,
need to
this-
read all this for a resolution? I don't think so, do you? No.
If they're incorporated in the resolution, which is I think that's what you're saying.
The master fee schedule, that term.
Yeah.
Refer to and
Yes.
to it.
And
The
this,
answer is no.
and this will be put on the website, and it will be posted, and it's.
And none of this is new.
The escrow fee schedule has been updated.
Escrow, yeah, but
Which is on the
most of
back
it is very familiar to most people.
Yeah, we've been talking about it.
Some of it's even
It's all
posted
in
at the
one
recycling
place
center.
now. It's nice.
Yeah, it's on 3 pages, so, and then all the department has read it. Okay, so, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, we approve the fee schedule as outlined here.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dave. Want to have a roll call vote? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. board master fee schedule passes for 2018. Steve, you want to lead the next one?
Now be it resolved, the town board of the town of Unionville does hereby approve the following documents that have been created in accordance with the New York State Comptroller's guidelines and all applicable laws. Financial control policies and processes and credit card use policy and procedures. These documents will be reviewed annually and revised when necessary.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the two documents?
I will make a motion to approve both documents.
I will second. Andrea, do you want to take a roll call vote? Aye?
Councilman Welch?
Aye.
Councilman Frazier?
Nay.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I think the third resolution is the introduction of a new local law. And this has to do, we talked about this at the last meeting, collecting, and I guess James Smith, the chair of the zoning board, alluded to in her
Yes, she
remarks.
basically requested it.
Karina, I hate to ask you to read all the long stuff, but would you mind reading the resolution? Thank you.
This is being introduced following the proposed local law to be known as Local Law Number 2 of 2018, entitled "A Local Law of the Town of Unionville, Dutchess County, New York, to amend Town Code Chapter 128, Article 1, applications with respect to escrow deposits. Being enacted by the Town Board of the Town of Unionville, the Town Code is amended to read as follows. Section 1, Chapter 128, Article 1, Section 128 2D of the Town Code of Town of Unionville is hereby amended to add a sentence at the end thereof reading as follows. If one or more engineering, legal, planning, technical, or environmental consultants is considered necessary by the Zoning Board of Appeals in making an informed decision on the application, or by the Planning Board in providing a recommendation with respect to the board's action, reimbursement to the town for such services shall occur at cost and be guaranteed in an amount established by the Board of Appeals through an escrow account. Section 2, Chapter 128, Article 1, Section 128 2E of the Town Code of Town of Unionville is hereby amended to add a sentence at the end thereof, reading as follows. If one or more engineering, legal, planning, technical, or environmental consultants is considered necessary by the Zoning Plan of Appeals in making an informed decision on the application, or by the Planning Board in providing a recommendation with respect to the board's action, reimbursement to the town for such services shall occur at a cost and be guaranteed in an amount established by the Board of Appeals through an escrow account. Section 3, this local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the state's Secretary of State. Who advised us?
That would be a member.
A member of the boards?
Yes.
Jane Smith advised the town board that pursuant to the Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York, it will be necessary to hold a public hearing upon this law. She offered the following resolution, which is seconded, we have to decide that. We move for its adoption. Whereas on this date, March 15, 2018, has introduced this local law for the town of Unionville to be known as Local Law 2 of 2018, entitled "A Local Law of the Town of Unionville, Dutchess County, New York, to amend Town Code Chapter 128, Article 1, applications with respect to escrow deposits." Resolved that a public hearing be held in relation to the proposed changes as set forth in the form of a notice, hearing provided, at which hearing parties of interest and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard, to be held at the Town Hall, 249 Dunkard Road, LaGrangeville, New York, 12540, in the town of Unionville, on
April 19th.
April 19th of 2018 at 7:30. Okay.
I was going to say, this is the first one I've read in a while. I like the way it was written because they clearly say the address, the mailing address, and they say in the town of Unionville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true.
All right, any other discussion?
Who's going to advise the board?
Was it me? Because I read it, so it really should have been me, not Jane. I was
No, Jane,
confused in
yeah.
that moment, but I think that it's really me, so I'm Karina.
Is that the advice of the
Yep.
board? Okay.
Yep.
Second, so then it's seconded by
Seconded by Dave. So
Dave.
maybe I should be
So
the
that
first
should be
one that
John,
proposes
because
it.
John advised, John made the,
So it should be
There's
Karina
another
Wright
one in here.
be the advisor.
Yeah.
Right.
there's one in here also, under
We
section
will fight
3.
over it.
And seconded in
Whoever's
section
name,
3.
his name's shorter.
John,
Yes,
Can't really
he-
misspell
he
it.
was also
Right.
here. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But-
As long as they're consistent.
Oh, okay,
You
well,
know,
it'd be
this
John
is-
and McMorris.
Right.
Okay.
Could be your birthday
Okay.
present, John.
So all in
You get it.
favor?
I give it to you
Do
for
we
your
have a
birthday.
roll call vote? Why don't we do a roll call vote?
Supervisor Ross?
Aye?
Councilman Welch?
Aye.
Councilman Frazier?
Aye.
Councilman McMorris?
aye.
Councilwoman Kelly?
Yes.
Terrific. That motion
Very good.
passes. We have a resolution of introduction on local law, and we will have a public hearing on April 19th.
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay, we have signed warrants before the meeting started. I mean, signed
Yes.
vouchers, everything's caught up there, so we don't really have any budget adjustments, and we don't have to pay bills at this time, because we already signed everything.
That's just approving it. Don't we have to make a motion to pay the bills?
Yeah.
Oh, do we?
We always
did
do.
that- We
We
just
just
did that last
motion.
month. Oh,
Yes, I
got it.
believe I did.
No, John did.
Yeah.
Did you?
I'll make a
Is that
motion, we
your
pay
job?
the bills.
I second that motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous,
We don't
thank
have a
you.
choice.
Okay, I didn't realize that, that's funny. Okay, thank you. Public comment on town issues? Your turn, was that, you were ready?
A storm must be coming because I can move pretty good. If a storm's coming, I can move. It's here, I can't. I'm the planning board planner. It's all very well and good to have an engineer, but someone has to check and double check and triple check that all the applications meet town code specifications. In the past, that's what the planner did. I mean, I'm just saying that, that's what he did.
You mean
And
Larry Paget? 'Cause he was the
No,
engineer.
no, no, no.
No,
Art Road.
Oh, Art.
Art
oh,
Road.
Yeah.
And you have to have someone make sure that the applications, because our town code is very complex, and sometimes you have to comply with more than one section of it. And also, I would like to know when the printed resolutions would be available to the general public, like the 3 that you just passed. When are they available in a printed form?
Well, it varies. This one took a little bit longer. We were going back and forth on it a long time. But ideally, we'd like to get them out a week in advance.
Okay.
This one we had a little trouble with some language, and it went back and forth a little bit. The longer
Okay,
one.
so if I asked Andrea a week in advance, she could give me printed forms on the resolutions that were going to be on the agenda?
Typically, yeah. If we have an issue with one, it'll be less than a
Okay.
week.
And also, I hope you realize what a good employee you have in George Kolb.
Yeah.
He does his work, his homework, and he gives you just about all the different ways you can do things, and
Oh, yeah, he
he
did a lot
keeps
of
his own, he keeps his own personal feelings out of it. So,
Yeah.
he
Thank you.
was, he and I always worked well together. He is an excellent employee.
Thank
Maybe
you.
you could mention in that unsolicited email you received this week about George.
It's just a nice compliment. I mean, he gets compliments a lot, and he got another written compliment this week that was 3 pages long. So he does a very good job. He's a great guy. So thank you, Lizette. Anybody else have any comments on town issues?
What's a warrant? I don't remember ever seeing this. Is that the same
It's
as a
like,
voucher?
it's like an abstract. It's like a list of something. It's like a bill, a list of,
It's been there every month.
that's a standard thing I put on these. Yeah, I just put this on every agenda. The warrant is a list of bills and things.
All right, secondly, is any part of the wise abatement? Because if it is,
No, it's all in you.
okay, thank you.
We get all the tax money.
Any other comments on, feel free.
Thanks. The first thing is on the signs that you're going to discuss. I wonder if you could put into that slightly different, but it does have to do with the public. And you had talked about it at one point, Ms. Moss, the having a policy for political signs, which has a penalty other than people are told to take it down, or in 30 days it'll be taken down, which is always after the election. There has to be something that's just and fair to everybody who obeys the law and those who choose not to. It just isn't fair. It didn't work out fair in the past. And the other thing is to go back to the first official town board meeting at which, at your moving forward on a motion, not a resolution, a motion that you introduced, Ms. Moss, that everyone should vote on allowing the town to use taxpayers' money to pay 50% of the supplemental insurance premiums for 5 retirees. It appears that those retirees, or at least some of them, were town people who were elected to office. I asked that question at the first meeting. I did not get a clear answer. And if that is true...
Retirees, I'm sorry, retirees?
The retirees were elected officials.
Okay.
And if it is true that they were elected officials, as appears to be true from a comment made during the meeting and at the end of the meeting, one of those officials would definitely have known, although you said before you introduced the motion that they were not told that they had to pay 50%, one of those officials either should have or did know that 100% of the premium, supplemental insurance premium, had to be paid by that official. I would like you, either now or at the next meeting, not to disclose the names. I'm not out to embarrass people, but to disclose the jobs they had and when they retired, because I don't think town monies should be being used for this. I think it's inappropriate, and that people should take a second look at it and vote again. If those people have difficulty paying, there are other ways we can help them out. But I don't think this is... Like GoFundMe, for instance, okay? And anyway, I have a different answer, which most people on this board won't like, is that it's time for have health insurance for all, and that would help. But the point is, it's wrong to use taxpayers' money for that, as that proposal, as that motion went forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
There is a workshop meeting on April 5th.
Thank you. Open to the public.
Correct.
Of course.
Which we will take.